Government collapses, crashing economies, and proxy wars are currently dominating the global newsfeed of every major nation today. We recently saw this play out in Bangladesh, where the leadership was ousted almost overnight, destabilizing an already volatile region. These widespread uprisings follow the specific logic of a meticulously executed geopolitical playbook. The United States maintains its unipolar status through this playbook, utilizing specific, invisible mechanisms of control to preserve its influence. Maintaining this global order requires three distinct levers of power, levers that rival nations are now actively plotting to break. The first lever is the U.S. dollar. Post-World War II agreements ensured that the vast majority of global trade, particularly oil, must be conducted in U.S. currency. This monopoly allows the U.S. to use its currency as a weapon. By cutting off a nation's access to dollar transactions, Washington can cripple a foreign economy overnight. Controlling the world's reserve currency allows the United States to enforce global compliance and bankrupt rivals without ever deploying a soldier. When economic pressure is insufficient, the U.S. employs its second lever, the CIA. Intelligence operatives use a shadow strategy to replace foreign leaders from within. The process begins by freezing international loans from the IMF. Denying credit induces hyperinflation, agitating the public. Next, the playbook funds opposition groups, while algorithms amplify anti-government anger. Finally, compromised military generals step aside, ensuring government collapse without a traditional battle. Analysts point to the recent removal and jailing of Pakistan's prime minister as a modern execution of this exact covert tactic. This strategy allows the American empire to replace foreign governments faster and more efficiently than a conventional invading army. The third lever is the military-industrial complex. The U.S. utilizes alliances like NATO to create a state of permanent dependency. NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is a military alliance between North American and European nations. To stay within this defense ecosystem, allied nations must purchase American-made weaponry so their hardware remains compatible. This turns global security needs into a consistent profit center for U.S. contractors. This enclosed ecosystem traps smaller nations into buying U.S. security at the cost of their own geopolitical independence. China is currently executing an opposite approach. They rely on silent growth and a massive scaling of domestic technology and robotics. Rather than funding coups, Beijing employs debt trap diplomacy. They issue large infrastructure loans to vulnerable nations with the knowledge that these debts can likely never be repaid. When countries default, China can legally seize critical assets. This is how Beijing gained control of Sri Lanka's Hambantota port on a 99-year lease. China is also showing military patience, waiting for the U.S. to overextend its naval resources in the Middle East before moving on Taiwan. Beijing is playing a century-long game to economically replace American hegemony before ever engaging them in a direct conflict. A significant systemic threat to this order is the BRICS alliance, originally formed by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Their goal is to build a parallel financial system. This chart compares the $40 trillion U.S. national debt against the world's shrinking reserves of global dollars. If BRICS successfully establishes a non-dollar trading currency, a process called de-dollarization, the U.S. will lose the ability to print its way out of this debt. India sits in a precarious position within this crossfire, bordering collapsing proxy states and facing constant Chinese expansion. To survive, New Delhi maintains strategic silence. India avoids binding alliances, buying Russian oil, and utilizing Western tech to maintain strict neutrality, while the region around it burns. In a multipolar world, the ultimate superpower trait is the sovereign independence to survive without relying on any single empire.